From the TireRack.com Fox Sports Radio studios, here's Jay Glazer, LaVar Arrington, Rob Stone, and former Cardinals GM Steve Keim.
We welcome you to draft night. The Chicago Bears are on the clock for the first time in 77 years. That franchise will make the number one overall pick. Jay Glazer is right next to me, and he just got off the phone, and he's busy. This is going to be the theme tonight. So, Jay, can I fire off the first question to you right off the bat?
Hey, first of all, what's happening, guys?
Happy early marriage.
Happy draft day. Thank you
Right?
very
Let's
much,
go.
man.
Let's go.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
What is the news here at 8:01 Eastern, 5:01 Pacific that you think is going to start shaking some things up?
You know, look, everybody's just calling to figure out also, hey, what do you think's going? Do we need to move here? Can we move there? This is who we like. What are you hearing? Here's the things. Here's what I already know. There'll be more offensive linemen taken this first round, I think, than ever before.
Oh, wow.
There'll be 6 quarterbacks taken in the first half of this draft.
Oh, wow.
So as expected, after they traded Justin Fields to Pittsburgh, Chicago, with that number one overall pick, courtesy of the Carolina Panthers, is going to sign, but picks the former Heisman Trophy winner Caleb Williams out of USC. And this is a pick that, Steve, makes a lot of sense on a lot of levels for this franchise.
There's no question. I mean, this organization needed a lift. Obviously, big-time player from a great program, has had a lot of success. He's got a big physical structure. I mean, you look at his hands are big. He's strong, fits the profile for what they need in that cold weather atmosphere up there in Chicago. And he can, to me, again, he is a franchise guy.
You know, and he has that, big arm, obviously, and the big arm to the point where he has so much confidence in himself. And I think in college he got himself in trouble with that. And I think in the pros he'll get coached to where he knows not to do that because things are a completely different level. And they'll obviously disguise so many different things in the pros, much more than college. So he's going to have to get better in that area. But just as far as just the tools of him being able to do some things when things are not there, that they're not so clear, I just think he's on a different level, him and Jaden, than we've seen in a little while.
My first thought is, who is he throwing the ball to? Do you feel good about the receivers that they have? DJ Moore, they added Keenan Allen, they have Tyler Scott. But the reality of it is can Keenan Allen stay healthy? There's always going to be the health concerns until he proves that otherwise. And DJ Moore is formidable. I think he's a good player for them. They added DeAndre Swift to the backfield. I like him as a running back.
They've had a good offseason, really good offseason.
Can they put it all together, and how quickly does that look? Is this a new-look Bears team that can actually give a lot that opportunity for Caleb Williams, who is young and still going to be a rookie? Can he come in and have that type of environment where the success is there for him early would be my biggest question.
And don't forget, they got the 9th pick also.
Yep.
They can continue to load up for him as well.
Steve, what's your read on Drake May out of North Carolina?
Well, he's got prototypical size and athleticism. He really does look the part. The thing that concerns me the most is here is a guy who has not probably lived up to the potential in terms of, you're playing for a team like North Carolina, and you would like to see a guy like that raise the bar for that university to take them to a higher amount of wins. And to me, again, it's concerning just because I've seen guys in the past, whether it's guys like Kyle Bowler in the past, whether it's guys like Blaine Gabbert. They have all the skills and the attributes, but there's something missing. And I thought he was a little too careless with the football, in my opinion.
Yeah, and teams were split on him big time. And I've had teams who had him at 3. Nobody really had him up there in 1 and 2. I've had teams had him at 3. I've had teams had him at 6 as the 6th best quarterback out there. And it's because of that inconsistency. And you look at me, and people have compared his size to Josh Allen. Like, that's not an accurate, really an accurate comparison at all. But I will tell you this: New England for a long time has been pretty set on Drake May. When teams have called, they haven't really been willing to move off of that either. And guys, this is where the draft really starts, because going in, as I told you right out of the gates, I thought these 3 quarterbacks would go, and then the draft starts here.
I think this is a conversation of highest ceilings versus highest ceilings. I think Drake May, Jaden Daniels are highest ceiling type of guys in this draft.
Like more room to grow?
More room to grow. I think there is more room to grow. You look at someone like Caleb Williams, he comes in, and you can look at the polished nature of how he approaches the game, what his results have been, and say that he's more of a guy that has had a higher of a floor than his ceiling. How high is his ceiling? Not sure. But what I can say is I think when you look at someone like Drake May in this draft, you look at someone like Jaden Daniels in this draft, is it going to be an environment where it's conducive to them being able to learn what the game is about and how to approach being successful as a pro, because they do have that potential in terms of having a good ceiling.
And by the way, after last year, there were guys who already said, we may even take May over Caleb Williams.
That's right.
That was last year, right, Steve?
Yeah, no.
And then this year happened, and that all changed.
And to be fair, I mean, I don't want to take away from his potential, but there are some things he absolutely needs to clean up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we go to a guy like Jaden Daniels. We haven't really hit on all that much. But Jaden Daniels, and by the way, I think the draft starts here. I think you'll see your first receiver here. I do think it'll be Marvin Harrison. Will be the first receiver that goes here. But, back to Jaden Daniels, here's a guy that stayed in school, and as a result of that, made himself an awfully wealthy guy because he was nowhere near this, right? Got the Heisman, but he played 5 years out there in college, and because he stayed in school, he was able to really work on improving and showing people how much he could improve, and that's why he was worth that second pick of the draft. And I still think he's going to improve an awful lot more.
That's a great point. To have that ability and opportunity to mature, to have the wherewithal to work on himself and work on the things that were needed to be worked on in order to make himself a more attractive player. Not only did he make himself a more attractive player, but it proved out that he would be the best player in college football this year by winning the Heisman. So, yeah, that's you're 100% right on the maturity aspect of it. And when in doubt, give yourself a little bit more time for development. There's nothing wrong with that.
And now, guys, we have our first receiver. I believe Marvin Harrison's going to go here.
But the first wide receiver, LaVar, has taken Marvin Harrison, a Big Ten guy, a guy who has just immense amount of talent. And you watch him live up close on the floor. My goodness,
I saw you before that game in the Horseshoe in Columbus, and seeing, he's one of those guys, seeing is believing. If you thought that he was anything but what the hype says he is, you see him in person, all those questions are answered. All those questions are melted away. Just a dynamic player. Obviously comes from a great line, and his father being Marvin Harrison Sr., the Hall of Famer, learned and understood the cerebral approach to being the player, being a professional even before becoming a professional at the position. It's a great pick for Arizona. He's someone that changes the dynamic of what this team is capable of doing day one.
What I love about Marvin Harrison Jr. is even when you knew they have to throw him the ball in this situation, he'd still get a completion. It didn't matter. So you could take everything and throw it at him. He's still going to figure out a way to get himself open. He has great separation, great speed, great size, great pedigree, like you said. He really didn't have a lot of knocks on him, Steve.
He didn't. And to me, I love this pick. To me, the Joe Alt, the Notre Dame offensive tackle, and Marvin Harrison Jr. may be two of the cleaner prospects in this draft. Tremendous character, obviously raised by the Hall of Famer Marvin Harrison Sr. To me, a little bit thicker, but reminds me a lot of A.J. Green when he came out of Georgia. A.J. was a lean, linear guy that could run. And make no mistake, this kid can run by you and create plays vertically. And to me, I think he is going to be a tremendous, tremendous asset for Kyler Murray.
Teams that were trying to trade up with the Falcons were staying tight. I was always told that defensive player. But about 5 days ago, somebody said, don't be surprised if they actually shock everybody and go with the quarterback, even though they already had one. And the guy in Michael Penix, that I know that they loved him there. That would surprise us all. I'm trying to text and find out if they actually are going to follow through on that or if they're going to go defensive player. But it was told to me a few days ago, and I was like, it's crazy. And then I started hearing more and more and more as we started lead up to this draft. And then earlier today, I really started hearing about it even more. So that one's going to be, a real interesting wrinkle if, in fact, the Atlanta Falcons go quarterback, despite the fact that they already got Kirk Cousins. But again, they have a defensive coach there that could also go the best defensive player. I'm just telling you, the quarterback is in the conversation. They can move back and get him also. He's just in the conversation. I'm not saying they're going to get him here yet, but he's in the conversation.
For what it's worth, Kirk Cousins is familiar with guys coming in and being a part of what's going on draft day as a quarterback.
Back in 2021, 14 games as a reserve. 2022 started all 13 games at right tackle. Last year, second team All-American, first team All-SEC, starting all 14 games at right tackle. So Tennessee, they had a screaming need at offensive tackle, and they absolutely addressed it with this selection of J.C. Latham.
He's got some personality on him, huh?
Absolutely. He's got a big personality. He actually went to IMG with my son.
Okay.
So I've known about him for a while. He'll take care of my son Sammy down there in IMG, but he is a big, big dude. Tennessee always had J.C. Latham and Joe Alt. They were, pegged in there as their picks. They were hoping that, both those guys weren't gone, because after that, there's a big drop-off for them. So there's a great selection here for Tennessee.
So now the intrigue at Atlanta, number 8 overall, 7-10, 6 straight seasons they finished with 7 or fewer wins, Jay.
Yeah, and guys, I'm going to sit here and go, you know what? They're going to end up going
First
quarterback
defense.
here. No, I'm going to. I do. Again, I started hearing it more and more and
This
more.
is
The Atlanta
crazy.
Falcons are going to shock everybody and end up going quarterback here.
This is
They're going to end up going
unbelievable.
Michael Penix.
Wow.
They shipped Desmond Ridder to Arizona. They signed Kirk Cousins, assuming he's going to be healthy off that Achilles injury. And, Steve, that's a big assumption.
How long is that contract for? 7 years?
It's only 2 years guaranteed,
2
I
years
believe,
guaranteed.
right?
It doesn't seem so egregious if you think about contractually speaking.
Right.
Give Mike Penix 2 years to learn from Kirk Cousins. Go ahead.
That's right. And another guy that was obviously injury prone, but at the same time, I mean, when you do look at the tape alone, and I'll say this, Jay, the guy is an absolute tremendous pure passer. I thought one of the better pure passers in this draft, even with all those top quarterbacks that just went. The guy has great anticipation, great feel for the game. His accuracy, his ball placement is just tremendous.
This is a guy who started at Indiana.
Absolutely. And when you watch him, the more and more you watched him, just the throwing of the football was just, it just blew me away. And I thought to myself, aside from, again, the injuries that you can't forecast, I thought he was maybe the best pure passer in this draft.
And here's a guy, obviously, he's had some injuries early on, so that concerned teams. Has a really long windup. But, man, this dude's a winner. He's a winner. That's the bottom line. And, it is. Yeah, I'm sure it's shocking, obviously, because they just put a lot of money into Kirk Cousins. But I guess you fall in love with someone and you don't come off, and no matter what you've done in free agency. I don't know, Steve, what do you think about that?
No, and I agree, especially at that position. Listen, if you fall in love with somebody and you have an opportunity to grab them, particularly a young guy at this point, you cannot forecast and guarantee who is going to be your starter in terms of the injuries. Obviously, again, Kirk's coming off of Achilles. That's a 9-month injury. And once you come back off that, who's to say what your movement in the pocket's going to be? So I think when you protect yourself, you get yourself a young backup who can grow and can learn within the system, with a new staff, with Raheem and those guys. I think it could be a solid pick. I mean, I really do the more I think about it.
Really?
Makes sense.
Even
It
though
does make
you got
sense.
a defensive coach and you got the best defensive player in the draft sitting there. Look, but then again, you're right. If you think you have an 8-time Pro Bowler, you got to get him regardless of what you've done.
But I think the defensive coach is just smart enough to know that that's the position he needs to have success.
Draft Night Live on Fox Sports Radio with insider Jay Glazer, former Cardinals GM Steve Keim, college football Hall of Famer LaVar Arrington. We are
Penn State.
And me, Rob Stone. Tonight we are finding out who will be going pro with Express Pros, the official employment agency of Fox Sports Radio's Draft Night Live. Tired of feeling alone in your job search? With just one connection, you can find endless job opportunities. That connection, Express Employment Professionals. Don't go it alone. Visit expresspros.com to find the location nearest you. That's expresspros.com. So the Atlanta Falcons, not only are they on the clock, their pick is in. After them, it'll be the Chicago Bears with another pick at number 9, the Jets at 10, the Vikings at 11, Broncos at 12, Raiders at 13. We just named a lot of teams that are in search of a quarterback. And if Michael Penix is indeed off the charts here with the Falcons, J.J. McCarthy is really that only top-tier
Last
QB
one.
that's still sitting there standing.
Bo Nix, you could have the conversation, maybe not quite as highly touted, of course, but, man, that would be a shakeup if Atlanta goes with Penix. I like it.
You do like it.
I like it a lot.
There's a lot of teams after them that don't like it so much.
Let's see.
Very interesting. Well, I mean, the Bears aren't going to take a quarterback. The Jets are pretty set. with Aaron Rodgers coming back from his injury. And then there's Minnesota sitting there at 11. And again, J.J. McCarthy was the guy who was always associated with Minnesota and their system, the one that seemed to make the most sense, right?
Yes, they
Will
did,
they
Jay
get
Glazer.
him? Here is the Atlanta pick.
With the 8th pick, the Atlanta Falcons select Michael Penix Jr., quarterback, Washington, 6'3", 214 pounds.
4 QBs taken in the top 8. Penix rising up the boards, and he is scooped up by the Falcons at number 8. Up next, the Bears with their second first-round pick.
And I think the Bears, look, they got their quarterback. I think they'll sit there and go wide receiver next. Obviously, Roma Dunze is still sitting there, and I think it would be a great one. I don't see them. I know they were looking at offensive line. They're also looking at defensive tackle and Byron Murphy, but I think having a Dunze sitting there would be the selection for them. But, guys, let's get back to Penix. That's the one that shocks everything. That's the one also where now all of a sudden Minnesota and Vegas thought, okay, we could sit there and we're going to get one of those other guys that we wanted. And now those two guys are going to sit here and say, man, do we have to try and move up even a couple? But there's not so much more for Minnesota to do. I'm sure that, Raiders you'd see, I don't know if they're going to be burning up the phone lines now to jump over Minnesota, but that's going to be the interesting thing.
Steve, if you're Denver, if you're the Raiders, are you making that slight move to leapfrog Minnesota to get a JJ?
Yeah, I think it's the sweet spot right now. You got to get up there now.
That's it.
It's with Penix off the board already, it limits your options, and you've got the urgency now to go.
Wow! If you're in love with him.
If you're in love with him, correct.
So Michael Penix, the conversation, a month or so ago was kind of first round ish, right, LaVar? Ish. And then kind of maybe in the 20s and maybe in the teens, and now here he is, a top 10 quarterback.
Top 10. Okay, so how many is that right now? 4?
4 quarterbacks: Williams, Daniels, May, and Penix.
We only got 2 to go for Jay to hit.
Back-to-back Huskies taken right now. Penix to the Falcons at 8, Odunze to the Bears at 9. We've had 9 picks. LaVar, would you like to tell me what side of the ball those 9 picks have been on?
On the opposite side, on the other side.
The other side, the bad side.
The other side.
All 9 picks have been offensive players. Remember, the record for most offensive players taken in the first round, 19, and we're almost halfway there.
With all these rules they put into play against defenders, why take a defender? You don't need them too much anymore, right?
By the way, we talked earlier about how the Bears had a great offseason already. Now you had Caleb Williams. Now you had Roma Dunze, who there were teams that had Roma Dunze as their top wide receiver on the board. And, man, you talk about a kid who just – there's no flaws that anybody really saw when it talked about his game, when it talked about him, his character, how much he loves football. I think that's a great pick for Chicago.
Absolutely. Another one of the guys, it's probably one of the cleaner picks in the draft. Great character, tremendous competitor, great 50-50 guy ball. I don't want to say he's Larry Fitzgerald, having been around Larry all those years, but he has got the same type of makeup when you talk about catching radius and ball skills and the ability to attack it in the crowd. No better gift than to give your franchise quarterback now a present like Roma Dunze.
And, guys, what I'm being told also is that the Minnesota Vikings are trading up with the Jets. They're giving a 4th and a 5th round pick as well with this selection, getting a 6th rounder back. So that's what the cost of business just to move up that one slot with the Jets. And they are going to take J.J. McCarthy once they make that selection.
That math makes sense to you, Steve?
Yeah, it does. It makes sense. I think it's a good, solid call on both sides. I think that's the hardest thing about the drafts. Again, there's a number system, and then there's sometimes where you just got to say to yourself, does this make sense for our organization? And you have to let your instincts take over.
It's the Vikings' done deal. Is J.J. McCarthy from everything that you're hearing?
Yeah, look, I've been talking to the Vikings about it the whole time also. They did love Drake May. And they love McCarthy also. And everybody was like, well, which way are they going to go? They did try to get up to, well, first of all, they tried to get up to 2. Right? They wanted
the Vikings did.
Yeah, to get Jaden Daniels. Then they talked to 3. They were looking at that. Maybe they get up there for Drake May. And then after that, they're like, man, do we move? Do we not move? And their thing was, well, if the Giants, go quarterback here, then we're probably going to have to move up there. They didn't expect Atlanta to go to quarterback, but they knew that they were able to sit tight a little bit and not jump all the way up to 5 and jump the Giants for a guy like J.J. McCarthy. So in the end here, look, Kevin O'Connell still gets the guy that he really likes there without having to mortgage a lot to get him.
That's right.
5 QBs in the top 10.
And you'll have one more here in the next couple picks.
Well, the market is speaking.
Yep. You'll have Bo Nix here in the next few picks.
It's a quarterback league.
It's a quarterback-driven league.
Sorry, LaVar.
Oh, no, it's all right.
But we know it, right? It's been that way for a while.
It's good for hunters.
Yeah.
And
quarterback
cover guys.
made you a lot of money.
gatherers.
There you go, hunters and gatherers. You got to gather the receivers. It's good for them, and you got to hunt the quarterbacks. It's good for them. So
isn't this amazing? No corner, no backer like you,
right.
No defensive end, no pass rusher, no three
rusher.
technique, zero, not one in the top 10 picks of this draft.
Wow.
Incredible.
Can I revisit the pick of J.J. McCarthy to the Minnesota Vikings?
Sure.
I just got to do this. Can you imagine a better opportunity to You saw how excited he was when he got drafted. Let's see. Jordan Addison.
Sam Darnold.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
Mr.
who he's gotta be.
Hawkinson. And you just got Aaron Jones in your backfield.
And Kevin O'Connell.
And Kevin O'Connell
Great
as a
quarterback
leader.
coach.
I would be remiss if I didn't say, how in the world does J.J. McCarthy find himself in probably the most advantageous situation of all quarterbacks in this draft?
I don't think there's any doubt in that. That's awful help for a young quarterback. And I just saw on the NFL Network the comp for him was Alex Smith. If that's the comp, that's a pretty good comp.
Right.
Yeah. Alex Smith, whether that was I don't know whether that was a compliment or not. For me, it's a compliment.
I think that's a huge compliment. Yeah, I think it's a huge compliment. So, here's the other interesting thing, guys. I never had J.J. McCarthy. They thought, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I never had it. Never thought that was going to happen. Even the Giants, you guys thought, I told you that I always thought Neighbors was going to go there too. So I thought he was really going to kind of go down there. I did still think he would be a top 10 pick, but not as high. But guys, I want to go on to the next one. Okay. It was the Denver Broncos. I told you there'd be 6 picks taken here in the top half.
You did say
right?
6.
And Bo Nix will end up being that next pick to Sean Payton, the Denver Broncos. And guys, Sean Payton has called me the last 48 hours about Bo Nix. And he said, I still want everybody to think we're going J.J. McCarthy, but Bo Nix has been my guy for the last 2 months.
And he's a player.
The night of his pro day, they actually gave Bo Nix all these this install, all these plays that he needed to remember, and they gave him a private workout the next day after his pro day, and they were all in, beyond all in. Now, he actually was just calling me about perhaps trading back a couple picks if he's able to. And he's like, do you think anybody else wants him? You think anybody else is up for Bo Nix? And I was like, I think you're the guy. But after Michael Penix went to Atlanta, Sean Payton all of a sudden said, you know what, I'm not going to entertain moving back. This is the guy I want. I'm not going to play any other games. He thought maybe he can get an extra 3 or 4, something along those lines. But he said, I'm just going to stay tight. He doesn't like this guy. He loves Bo Nix. And I think Bo Nix is if there's any team, we just talked about how great of a fit J.J. McCarthy is for Kevin O'Connell. I think if there's one team that be a perfect fit for Bo Nix, it'd be Sean Payton.
Bo Nix, he's just one of those guys, from what I can gather, a very mature, very, very professional in his approach to how he does things. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's the pick, because he has kind of like the character traits of one Drew Brees.
Yeah. Or,
real mature in how he handles things.
Well, he's got great DNA. His dad, Patrick Nix, quarterback at Auburn a long time.
Yep.
That's where
I thought you was going to say Hakeem, the receiver.
That's where Bo started to at Auburn before transferring out west to Oregon. And the pick is in. The Broncos at number 12.
With the 12th pick, the Denver Broncos select Bo Nix, quarterback, Oregon, 6'2", 217 pounds.
6 quarterbacks have now been taken in our first 12 picks, and all 12 picks
Jay Glazer,
have been on the offensive side of the ball.
Jay Glazer.
He's a magician.
I'll tell you what. Bo Nix is a fierce competitor, by the way. The guy makes great decisions. He's one of those guys when I was watching, because my son's getting recruited by Oregon, so we've seen a couple of their games, watched a lot of their games. He is one of those guys that lifts the guys up around him. If you need that leadership of, we got this, like let's tune in, let's lock in, let's dial in. Bo Nix, he's the type of guy. I heard the story. Him and his, I believe, fiance, girlfriend, wife, one of the above, they actually babysat for the head coach. He's one of those guys. So he's not out there. You don't have anything to worry about with him. Wholesome guy, and he's going to work his ass off in terms of how he approaches the game. And that has been his reputation from all things given that I've been able to gather and hear about him.
There are a lot of hugs and handshakes in the Denver draft room right now. We're seeing the reaction from the draft party for Denver. So Bo Nix rising rapidly up to number 12 to the Broncos. Who's up next? Another team that needed a quarterback but is probably out of luck at this point. The Raiders at number 13.
Yeah, and the Raiders, look, when I was just talking to them also, first of all, they are, besides themselves, not getting a quarterback here. And I think they were going to look at offensive line, thinking a guy like Brock Bowers would be gone, but Brock Bowers is still there.
I would love that pick for them.
Brock Bowers is still there, guys. I think the Raiders jump on the chance to get a guy like Brock Bowers. They just didn't think he'd be anywhere near available at that time. So they weren't able to get a quarterback. They're looking to tackle, but it's still like, maybe we trade back. But that's thinking a guy like Brock Bowers isn't there.
Well,
game changer.
There's no better friend to a mediocre quarterback than an elite tight end.
You got that right. Whew. And he's like Jeremy Shockey elite. Like, the guy is special. He makes plays. And, the one thing I loved about him and his game is he made plays when they were needed, when they were necessary to make. Brock Bowers was the guy that you can lean on, and you knew it was coming. So it's almost like a Travis Kelce type of situation. You know it needs to be a play. You know who's going to get the ball, and he still gets it. That's a guy. That's a guy.
I mean, you see very few tight ends running reverses, and having a guy with his size and length to have small man skills. I mean, he is a tremendous athlete, probably one of the better tight ends to come out in recent years.
Hybrid guy, tight end receiver type, led Georgia in receiving each of the past 3 seasons, did miss 3 games, and didn't play in a bowl last season.
Got a little breaking news here for you, Rob. Got a little breaking news.
Uh-oh.
The Kansas City Chiefs have traded up with the Buffalo Bills, who is their conference rival. It still kind of shocks me that the Bills have done this because the Chiefs, who are they going to select? The fastest dude in the draft, Xavier Worthy, who ran a 4.23. Was it 4.23 at the combine? 4.23 at the combine, fastest ever. That's who they are giving to Patrick Mahomes to shore up that wide receiver core. Unbelievable. That look, I just for me, look at it like Buffalo. Why help? The team that you have to kind of topple for just a couple of picks, and helping them get a guy like that. It's wow. That one's wow. That one's a wow, right? But what a pick, a value pick for Kansas City.
You get a deep ball threat.
Right.
It's going. Listen, Kansas City's offense still continues to go through the center of the field. All right, you're going to take Kelce and you're going to access the center of the field, no matter how that is from hash to hash. That's what they're going, numbers to numbers. They're going to get you in between the numbers. So the idea of having a guy that can stretch the field out where you can't bring your defenses down, your safeties can't cheat, and your linebackers really aren't, they're just not going to be good enough to cover a Kelce, maybe still, hopefully. But the ability to stretch the field out with this Chiefs team, that's probably what they were missing.
Let's not forget this offseason they added Hollywood Brown, who's also
Yes, they did. So
now you have Xavier Worthy, you have Hollywood Brown.
Wow. This selection is, again, if there's a fit, and here's the thing about Xavier Worthy. It's hard for quarterbacks to catch up, so sometimes it looks like when he's out in his route, it looks a little odd because they just can't catch up to him. How fast is he? He is.
Get to it.
And Patrick Mahomes certainly can. Patrick Mahomes is just going to do the same thing with him he did with Tyreek Hill. And, man, this was already a pick-your-poison type of offense, and now it just gets a lot more dangerous.
Fourth trade of the evening as Kansas City moves up from 32 to number 28, flipping spots with the Buffalo Bills. Xavier Worthy will be the 5th wide receiver taken. In Kansas City, if you're Buffalo, Steve, what is the rationale from a GM perspective on pulling off a trade like that?
The only thing I can think is they're sitting there, and again, they have a number of players that they have rated in the similar area. They don't love anybody, and really they just want to add picks. And to me, again, to do it with a division rival, I mean, that's got to be painful.
Wow.
Right?
I just, for me, if you have I'd say this: what do you do if your board says that's the decision that you're supposed to make? That's like in playing blackjack or something. The book says if you don't love them, get more picks, even if that means giving it to Kansas City. How? I guess you got to stay true to what it is that your plan is, right?
I mean, to me, it's a little bit of a.
To
me, it's a mind trick. I mean, because here you are. That's the one team you are chasing.
Right.
And all of a sudden you're flipping a pick with them.
Now you're sitting there going, oh, what did we do? No! When you realize who it is.
You don't think Josh Allen would like to throw to Xavier Worthy?
Right.
Oh, my goodness. Back to that Xavier Worthy pick.
Wow.
That is now 20 offensive players taken in the first round, a new NFL draft record.
Wow.
Man, what a night, boys. What a night. No linebackers, no running backs.
Unbelievable.
No
safeties.
20-something to get a corner, no safeties, 6 quarterbacks in the top 12.
Unbelievable.
Right? We told you that would happen.
And some great players sitting out there tomorrow as well. Steve, just from your perspective, kind of taking a look at the whole of the draft, and I know it's so tough to analyze who won, who lost, but who are some teams that you're saying are walking away tonight going, wow, we did ourselves right?
Well, I think when you look at the two teams who had the 2 first-round picks, whether it be the Cardinals or Minnesota, I think both those teams have gotten significantly better with 4 players that can really play.
Chicago
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Chicago as well.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
those 3 teams, again, I think that the opportunity to have 2 first-round picks, they capitalized.
Yeah, I like the Lions, what they did. I like a lot of these teams getting those offensive linemen. I like Pittsburgh's offensive linemen all the way down there. But hey, look, the biggest story of this draft by far.
Chiefs.
No, not Kansas City Chiefs.
No,
Penix?
It's Penix, the Atlanta
to
Falcons.
the Falcons.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now there's all these stories out there about, man, Kirk Cousins had no idea, didn't know about it. And I was texting with somebody while this was going on, saying, another head coach saying, hey, you think if Kirk knew they were going to go quarterback, he'd ever sign with Atlanta? He's like, absolutely not.
Let me ask you guys this. Do you think it's because he's coming off of the injury as well?
No, I think they loved him that much. They love Penn. And when you love a quarterback that you think, hey, this guy is going to be a perennial Pro Bowler over and over and over.
But you've already started to
But you know that's not going to happen with Kirk. Then you think that highly of him. I think they looked and said, we got to go with it. But I agreed. Like, there's so many other needs there. But it was crazy. I heard it the other day. Talked to Raheem Morris today. He repeated it. I didn't believe it. And especially not that he goes, it's probably too rich up there. Later on, if we trade, because I knew there were people looking for him. But I said, really? He said, oh, man, he loved him. Absolutely loved him.
Wow.
Steve, I guess if you're that convicted on somebody.
Yeah. You just take him. You don't look back.
Really?
Do it.
Really?
And you know what's so funny about this process is sometimes we talk ourselves out of things. I mean, it's, I was with Bruce Arians a couple months ago, and he and I both sat down and watched a little bit of Penix, and was a guy that we really liked. But we talk ourselves out of it now because now there's some injury questions. Now there's some other concerns. Some of these other guys are a little cleaner. Trust your gut. Trust your instincts. Sometimes when you press and you try to make decisions based on your need, you're going to screw yourself. And at the end of the day, maybe the Falcons were the ones that pulled this off the right way.
Wow.
So, Carolina, their draft pick is in, and it is the second-team All-SEC wideout, Xavier Legette from South Carolina. So we close with back-to-back wide receivers, 7 wide receivers taken in the first round.
Yeah, I think our over-under for that was 6.
23 offensive players total. What was the over-under on that one?
What was the offense? I just said it would be the most of all time.
The record was 19.
That's right. There we go.
They blew it out
no,
the
I said the
water.
most offensive lineman. Was it? I don't know the record for that. Do we have that? Where's our analytics guy when you need him?
6 quarterbacks taken in the top 12. So the last time we had 6 quarterbacks taken in the first round, that QB draft of 1983, Elway, Blackledge,
Marino.
Kelly,
Not in the top 12, though.
Not in the top 12. That was in the top 27.
Wow.
Dan Marino going 27th to Miami back in 1983. So 6 quarterbacks taken in the first 12 picks today. Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix, J.J. McCarthy to Minnesota, who moved up 1 spot to get him, and Bo Nix to number 12. The big
Everybody got the quarterback they wanted except for the Raiders.
Dang.
But the Raiders might have gotten the tight end that they really craved in Brock Bowers as well.
That's going to be nice to see him.
Yeah, he was described as a generational type talent.
He is.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Now, this was incredible, boys.
It's been fun, bro.
Such a good time with you.
Always a pleasure.
Rob, thanks you for leading the charge for us as always.
Sure.
Yeah,
I'll lead the charge for you to get to the airport in that fun little boondoggle you got in the Bahamas. And have a great wedding, my friend.